Hey, what's up guys? I'm KBHD here, and this is Samsung's new flagship, the Galaxy S20. I actually kind of like that they're catching up the name to the year, so 2020, Galaxy S20. Now, I don't know that they'd say this ever publicly, but if you went to Samsung and just asked, hey, what's the most important phone that you guys make every year? What's the most influential phone in your lineup? It would be this. It would be the new Galaxy S flagship. This is the phone that the average person sees as the Android iPhone competitor, as the big nemesis. And when you have such a big reputation to protect, you tend to not take as many risks. You want to make the right safe moves in the right places and then take the risks with other phones. So I have my buddy Judner here, whose YouTube channel is Your Average Consumer, to help me out with this one. So you should definitely check out his channel, link below. So without any further ado, let's get into Galaxy S20. So Samsung made some moves with this phone, and they're all around pretty great. It's a new high refresh rate display, a bigger battery, a new camera system, and 5G. Pretty simple, safe, but all good moves. So I'll start with the display because it's the best upgrade. So you might remember I was harping all of last year on how much I love high refresh rate displays, and there were naysayers, but now we're all slowly, I guess, realizing how good it is. Now Samsung's on board with the Galaxy S20, and we've got a super fluid 120 hertz display. It's also 0.1 inches bigger and flattened out a bit on the edges. So this is the biggest, best change for the Galaxy S20.
I'm a gamer, so when I'm gaming and if the game supports 120 hertz,
right,
it's a whole nother level, guys. It feels so different from regular games that you just fall in love immediately.
There's certain types of games also that look better at 120 hertz. Like I was just playing a golf game, and the ball flies through the air and it's smooth and everything, but a racing game where you're really trying to react quickly and stuff is coming at you real quick, flying across the screen, there's less tearing, that's where 120 hertz looks amazing.
Yeah, like I said, it's a must. It's a must.
So needless to say, I'm a huge fan of the high refresh rate. I've been saying it. But also, something you notice in pretty much every phone that's moving up to the high refresh rate is a bigger battery to keep up with it. And so Galaxy S20 also does that, moving from 3400 to a 4000 milliamp hour battery. On paper, that's pretty good. That's a substantial gain. It's almost 20% bigger. And you also still have the wireless charging, and you have up to 25 watt fast charging. But at the end of the day, you just want battery life to hold up.
All right, so battery life. How's your battery been? I don't want to spoil your video, and I'm sure you'll go into detail on it, but generally on S20, what's that been like?
I can pretty confidently hit 5 hours, maybe even slightly under that, but we're talking about 4,000 milliamp hours and 120 hertz always on.
Right.
So I'm not gonna say I'm pretty happy with it.
Like, and for you, that's a whole day, like getting to the end of the day, no problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's been about the same. Like a 5 hour screen on time day is pretty good. There are some days where I might need more, and so I can kill this phone in a day. I don't think I could say that about like the 5,000, 6,000 milliamp hour phones.
Right.
But yeah, I'm comfortable with the battery at 120 hertz.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a difference between this and like the Ultra.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think so.
But I think given the fact that you are using it at 120 hertz, it's worth the trade-off. 120 hertz is that good.
To me, it feels like an even trade between high refresh rate and battery life, meaning this phone got up to 4,000 milliamp hours and it didn't really gain a ton or lose a ton of battery life. The Ultra still has better battery life with that even bigger battery, but overall I'd give this phone a solid B+. And then of course, if you really want to save battery, pro tip, you can, it comes out of the box at 60 hertz, but pro tip, you can switch it back down to 60 hertz and you will gain, tests say, around 30% battery life by switching down. So if you're about to have a super long day and you know you won't have access to a charger, you can switch down to 60 hertz, fine, longer battery life. But the rest of the internal specs, as a reminder, are bumped up to 2020 flagship numbers, which are just crazy big numbers across the board. So Snapdragon 865, 12 gigs of RAM across every one, 128 gigs of UFS 3.0 storage to start, and all great performers. And as I expected, this phone performs great. Actually, it performs every bit as great as the S20 Ultra. That's something we don't talk about as much, is the ceiling for performance in these high-end phones is pretty consistent. And in a brand new phone, going from 12 to 16 gigs of RAM doesn't make that much of a difference right now. So the S20 doesn't stutter or lag or have any problem multitasking or holding apps in the RAM any worse than the Ultra in case you were wondering.
All right, I got an average consumer question for you,
Okay.
because I'm apparently out of touch.
Okay.
Does the average consumer miss this headphone? This is the first headphone jack being gone from a Samsung flagship. It was gone from the Note 10, but like this is the default Android phone. The headphone jack is gone.
Yeah.
Is this a big moment for that?
It's a big moment, I'd say, because I think it shows the willingness people are to accept that it's gone.
Yeah.
Samsung's been one of the last companies to really hold on to it.
Yeah, I agree. No headphone jack, not a big deal for me. It's been like 3 years now of me not using a phone with a headphone jack. I have my wireless headphones, but
Yeah,
it's
I've complained about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I noticed a lot of people in my comment section would just be like, dude, get over it. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm trying to defend you guys,
That's
but if
how you
you're
know.
cool with it, then
Yeah.
okay. So I stopped kind of knocking companies for taking it away.
Yeah, if you still gotta have the headphone jack, there's a couple options left, but this is no longer one of them.
So the new camera system, the last big change in these phones, it's kind of funny. It's a 12 megapixel main camera with OIS, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 64 megapixel 3x telephoto camera. So of course the specs are a bit worse on paper, but the camera experience of the S20 in a couple of ways is actually better than the S20 Ultra. That's mainly because the S20 Ultra had a couple issues that the S20 doesn't have, plus the couple of things that the S20 Ultra does specifically better than most, like zoom, aren't necessarily enjoyable or applicable to everyone. So a typical photo from the Galaxy S20 camera is sharp, first of all. Some may find the look over-sharpened actually at times, but you can't ever really complain that it's soft. And Samsung has continued to tone down and dial back what used to be this crazy saturated and vivid color complex to now a more neutral look that I like, and I still think it works. It definitely still likes bright exposures though, and it will err on the side of overexposure sometimes, but generally it takes nice photos. Plus, I've had none of the S20 Ultra's autofocus issues, thanks to dual pixel autofocus being back here, and the sensor being smaller also technically means the fringing at the edges that I talked about with the S20 Ultra is less of a problem. I'm actually seeing less involuntary bokeh and less close focus smearing. And then zoom will get you to a maximum of 30x instead of 100x, but I still find that's plenty, that's enough for me. Like I mentioned before, I usually just zoom with my feet, but in the few instances where I can't, you will get crisper far away shots with just this telephoto.
I mean, videos are pretty solid, especially if you're using like the Super Steady.
That's really good.
It looks so good.
Yeah.
Like, I can shoot B-roll with this and probably get away with it.
Really?
I think so. I think for the average person, I think.
Well,
I think
yeah, that's true.
But for us, maybe not. But I think regular people using this for video, they're not gonna have any complaints. Like things are a bit sharp, you know, but for the most part, it looks pretty solid.
So the 4K video on this phone looks good. 8K video, while it's available, and that's amazing, it's still kind of compromised again. It's still 24 FPS, still has some rolling shutter, and has no tracking autofocus. But really the main thing is it doesn't even come from the main camera this time. It comes from the higher resolution 64 megapixel telephoto camera, which means it crops in a lot and is just generally harder to use. So I'd stick with the 4K video for the most part for safety. So they hit the big three with the right moves with camera, battery, and display. They're all better. But then they have to be smart about preserving, keeping the familiar good stuff, which they also did a lot of with S20. So they kept the ultrasonic fingerprint reader, and it's fine. You know, they kept the speaker at the bottom of the phone. That's fine. They still have One UI, of course, and all their 25 million features, still IP68 water resistant, still expandable storage. It's actually better button placement, meaning they got rid of the Bixby button. They still have the hole punch camera up at the front. It's moved to the middle now, but it's still a small cutout. And really they just kept the same general design aesthetic and materials from Galaxy S10. I mean, it's a glass sandwich. In the spirit of figuring out the average consumer, I did a little poll on Twitter to try to figure out how many of you guys use a case on your phone. And if I was guessing, I would have said something like 60, 65%, but it was closer to 80% of you. So if you're looking for a case for the Galaxy S20, might as well check out the grip case from channel sponsor dbrand. I don't have it here, but I think Andrew does over there on the other side of the studio. You got the one with the teardown skin on it? Let me get that one over here. So yeah, the grip seems to work pretty well. It's pretty protective. So yeah, like I said, a lot of the right moves. These phones also now have 5G across the board, S20 to S20 Ultra, but the regular S20 only supports low to mid-band 5G, while the S20 Plus and Ultra add millimeter wave. So y'all know how I feel about 5G. I already have said you probably shouldn't buy these phones just for 5G, but it's worth noting this will never have millimeter wave 5G. But now that we've seen what Samsung's improved and we've actually used it, this definitely still looks and feels like the default Android phone, which if you're gonna compete, this is the $1,000 phone you gotta measure up to, and if you wanna charge more than that, you gotta beat it at something. And I feel like that's exactly what Samsung wanted, and they're still happy to have that spot. So big thank you and shout out again to Judner for the collab. You should check out his day in the life video. I'll link it below the like button, where he goes over all the little nuances and things you find using a phone like this on a daily basis. But that's the Galaxy S20. Is it the best phone? No. It's not even Samsung's best phone in their lineup. That would be the Ultra. But this is a better buy. So this is the new default. Who's gonna beat it? That's been it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.